It doesn't take a genius to see that in most ways, this is a man's world. And let's just be honest, for thousands of years, many men have been using this dominion that they have over the world in abusive ways. Now, in some places in the planet, this is starting to shift, but it is embarrassing that even my own mother's generation was struggling with women's rights movement.
Green eggs and fam, spacepan. What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about Teal Swan. You might be familiar with her. She has an extremely large YouTube channel. She does a lot of like hippy-dippy, psycho, self-help kind of stuff. She's a fun character. She's a very interesting speaker. A lot of her content's really cool. Yeah, I like to watch it every once in a while just to kind of mix things up, because otherwise I watch too much like news and opinion shit. So it's a fun change of pace. I decided to watch a video. The other day she uploaded one, do we castrate our men? And the overall analysis, the overall idea that essentially it's that mothers feel oppressed under patriarchy and therefore they infantilize their sons in order to make sure that their sons don't become the patriarchs who have oppressed them. So as far as that actual structure and that actual theory, insofar it could be like true of specific mothers and whatever, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's probably true for a lot of people. However, what I take issue with was basically that she used patriarchy theory as a catch-all. Like basically, because these mothers feel oppressed, they have absolutely no moral responsibility whatsoever.
For thousands of years, women have been facing powerlessness, and so many women in the world still do face powerlessness every day. Powerlessness is the reason that women have become so incredibly manipulative. Women had control and power over almost nothing. The one place which we were allowed to have control and power was over the home, and especially over children. It's with this in mind that for the sake of awakening, I'm about to expose to you one of the biggest shadows that has occurred within the female race as a result of this generational experience. It has happened as a direct reaction to the tyranny of men.
And you can hear it in the way she talks about the issue. At no point does she refer to these sons, these young boys in this situation, as victims. She doesn't see them as human beings. She sees them as human doings. She sees them as means to her ends as a woman. So basically, these mothers have these retarded, fake fucking views in their head that they're oppressed, these just retarded histrionic delusions, that's all it is.
Basically, feeling like we as women had no control over the men in our lives and their tyranny over us.
Whatever, just, manipulate, abuse, fuck your son, do whatever the fuck you want. Oh, you're just a poor fucking oppressed, overgrown, retarded child that we euphemistically call a woman.
Because of this castration dynamic, the shadow of men has actually done a pendulum swing from tyranny and that type of power all the way to passivity, where the divine masculine cannot shine through. You cannot make an enemy of manhood without simultaneously making an enemy or eradicating all of the positive aspects of manhood. Things like initiative, action, purpose, direction, movement, responsibility, strength, focus, fatherhood, generosity, encouragement, material abundance, transformation, and growth. We've created a society of men who have turned against a major part of themselves. As a result, they can't live into their true purpose. Many of them are developing emotional, mental, and physical disorders and illnesses that are a direct result of disowning this masculinity. And let's just be honest. The little side effect that most of us didn't see when we were trying to stay safe by castrating our sons is that we'd end up raising men who we're not attracted to. No one's attracted to a castrated guy. Their energy isn't there. There's no polarity. This guy is passive. This guy is not stepping into his power. He has no responsibility. This is the type of guy where we're like, yeah.
That's what I have to believe in order for her perspective to make sense. Like, I have to believe that women are just moral cripples and retards. I'm not at that point. Not yet. Because there are some quote-unquote NAWALs out there who have shown at least that, there's potential. Not that men are generally better, it's just that there's a very different moral question when you're part of the group that's had special protections and privilege showered on you throughout all of human history, that you have a little bit of a responsibility, especially when, you don't have a problem being labeled the more empathetic gender. You'd think that with all this hashtag Me Tooing, there might be like a hashtag What About You, like a... But no, we see it consistently that the issues that the men's rights movement brings up, even though objectively speaking, for any human being who believes that men and women are equally worthy of human concern, all the men's rights issues are objectively more important, like homelessness, the way we treat our veterans, genital mutilation, suicide, actual violence. Not to mention the fact that the way we measure rape statistics is specifically designed to exclude male victims of female perpetrators, the sentencing disparity, like I could just rattle them off. There's a million of them, and every single one of these individually, it's about as important as the top 5 to 10 women's issues all put together. I get that that's kind of arithmetically, there's a lot of apples and oranges, rapes versus murders, ooh, whatever, but I don't think it's a hard case to make. I think if you just look at it, it's not hard to see that at all. You basically have to believe that women are so fragile and weak that when less severe things happen to them, they suffer more because they're just that fucking weak and pathetic. So anyway, I'll throw the clips into here, but you can basically see she just throws out this cookie cutter, lazy, retarded narrative of history based in patriarchy theory, where men were essentially tyrants and oppressors throughout all of human history. And what she does basically is she like I said earlier, she allows this to be a sort of moral justification, a sort of catch-all for abusive mothers. So I went into the comments section and I called that shit out. I was like, I thought this bitch was smart. If you're a smart woman, you have absolutely no excuse for thinking that you're oppressed or thinking that you ever were oppressed or that women were ever oppressed relative to men. It's an absolutely baseless theory. Well, it's not baseless. The one thing it's based in is gynocentrism. It's based in the most widespread and powerful form of bigotry humanity has ever known.
And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything. And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything. And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything. And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything. And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything. And instead of us turning into men and them turning into women, what's happened is that we have been left to do everything.
Whatever, her being wrong, me making a comment, whatever, that's not the big issue, but her fucking fans, the fucking people in the comment section, what you have to realize is a woman, particularly a mother, who watches that video and then likes it and then comments the kind of shit oh, thank you for posting this, blah, blah, blah. She's signing off on this idea that she gets a fucking pass, that women don't have a responsibility to care for and not abuse their children because they have a fucking catch-all excuse called, oh my god, patriarchy. This idea that your feelings are always valid, it's completely fucking stupid. The feelings are never valid. That's the correct position. Feelings are never valid. They might be useful, they might tell you things, but you don't cite them. And if it's input, if it's garbage input, it's garbage output. So if the things that are causing you to have your emotional state or your emotional reactions, if it's based on lies, if it's based on shit that didn't happen or isn't real, no, your feelings aren't valid. Your feelings are fucking stupid and you need to get your facts straight so that you can fix your fucking emotions. It's not hard, not that complicated. And I would say, a lot of people look at someone and say, oh, you're really angry. Clearly you have a problem. Society has a problem. People who recognize that problem are angry about it because the problem is perpetuated by people who claim that they're solving the issues. And those people, those same people, slander the people who actually bring it up because they don't want to be audited, because they don't want to be held responsible, because they've been taking government money, taking public money, hand over fist to solve problems related to gender. And the moment that we blow the lid off of it and say, you guys are completely fucking stupid, all of your priorities are garbage, and we can prove it. We have the documentation to prove it. You're specifically avoiding the issues that matter. Of course they don't want that. Of course they don't want that kind of criticism. It's totally valid, totally logical criticism. basically what we're just seeing is their moral cowardice, the moral cowardice of women's groups, of domestic violence groups, of, all these women's advocacy groups, rape advocacy groups. They're all fucking cowards, every single one of them. They're just using the fact that we already care about female rape victims in order to pinch a penny. That's it. That's all. They don't actually stand up for victims of sexual assault or sexual violence when it's inconvenient to them, or when they're not going to be praised by society when they do speak out about it. This is why so many people are latching onto the Me Too thing. In theory, this was a problem the entire time, right? The people who are clustering around this now and being part of this movement, they're all a bunch of fucking moral retards and cowards, in my opinion, because there's far more important issues of sexual violence out there. I've been trying to speak to them for the past 4 or 5 years now, with very little success. People just treat me like a fucking crazy person, and I've never understood that. From the first time that I encountered men's issues, I thought, wow, this stuff is crazy. Wow, this stuff is clearly important. What's happening? What's being done about it? Because with any other issue, any other humanitarian issue, there are things being done about it, and when you bring it up, people are at least sympathetic. When you bring up the men's rights issues, it's totally different. Nothing else is like this. Nothing else gets this kind of resistance, yet nothing else is more important. There's no demographic you can point to that is more in crisis than men as a whole, as a gender. I don't care if you're talking about any minority group, any religious group, women, gays. No, not a single one of them have the same case. I'll make this case against anyone. Men absolutely are getting a raw deal and have been the entire time. That would be my argument. Not a lot of other MRAs would make a claim that hard. I understand that I'm kind of wandering off the plantation a little bit. That's why I call myself a radical MRA, a radical advocate, because my good faith views are just way further down the spectrum than most other people. I think that we should get reparations for feminism. I think that the women's movement was an absolute fraud. I do think that feminism one day will be remembered like Nazism, and that people will properly see patriarchy theory as the most epic human rights slander campaign, the most epic campaign of dehumanization that has ever occurred. And if you really try to reverse engineer all of the bullshit and all of the violence that starts from patriarchy theory, yeah, multiple Holocausts can fit in there. I'm not surprised at all. I would say with a lot of confidence that if we could have a second Holocaust that meant we never had feminism, we'd be better off. The damage and the evil perpetrated by feminism far outweighs 6, 12, 20, 50 million deaths easily. I would make that claim. That's why I identify as a radical MRA.
Then we hate them for that too. I want you to be aware of something. Human beings have a tendency to set each other up to feel how they feel. That's what's been happening. The way that you feel having your masculinity taken away from you is exactly how women have felt for thousands of years. Denied of their own power, can't be who they really are, used as an accessory, really, really angry. But if you have the bravery and the strength to own your own masculinity, then you can be one of those rare men walking the planet who's not only improved your own life immensely by doing this, but who can also prove to women that it's not being a man in and of itself that makes women unsafe.
Look at this Teal Swan video. Think about this. The fact that this just goes unquestioned, that women can just assume, oh, well, I'm oppressed. Think about how much violence that subconsciously justifies in their head, how much violence and fraud and bullshit. And then we look out into society and we see, the woman who falsely accuses the cab driver of rape so she can get out of a fucking cab fare. That man who was only exonerated because he recorded it. John Gomeshi, who was only exonerated because he had just an insane collection of old evidence in order to impeach fucking Lucy Decatur for being the lying fucking whore that she was. I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at Daniel Holtzclaw. Look at the fact that women don't seem at all interested in there being prosecution for false rape accusers. To me, rape victims, for example, that would be the fucking number one thing. It'd be fuck these lying bitches, you make it harder for us. Common fucking sense is that if you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a person has engaged in a false accusation, they ought to get the same punishment. Now, the typical MRA stance is, yeah, they should get the same punishment. My stance, the radical MRA stance, is Yes, she should get the same punishment. Throw the bitch in man jail. Because you know what? If you make a false rape accusation, the damage is already done. You already got your credit for being a rape victim. You already fucking slandered some innocent person for no fucking reason. So really, it seems like the only way to make justice is to ensure she actually gets raped. Because it looks like, with false accusers, they're still seen as victims somehow. People like Emma Sulkowicz still get to, have a career, I guess, in being fake rape victims. It amazes me that people aren't just kind of pretending that didn't happen, that they're pretending that they didn't encourage it and enable it and listen and believe the fucking bitch. So, yeah, I don't really think that any of my stances are that radical. They're just radical relative to how fucked up society is. So, these women who believe they're oppressed, naturally, they're going to use that as a subconscious justification to perpetrate violence against others. Because this is exactly what it is. This is my theory. It just combines Alison Tiemann's approach of threat narratives with Molyneux's universally preferable behavior and with libertarian ethics, the non-aggression principle. And it's very simple. Here's what it is. The fact that people use threat narratives validates libertarian ethics. What they're doing is they're trying to create situations that can be packaged into libertarian ethics, into the non-aggression principle. They're packaging their target as the initiator of violence in order to justify violence against them, right? So if you believe in patriarchy theory as a woman, you believe that you're wronged. You believe that you're a victim, and you believe that the perpetrator is all men in general throughout all of history. So essentially, this kind of a thing in your head, obviously it's going to lead to you being a fucking cunt, and it explains everything.
Being raised in a Muslim household and knowing many circumcised men, I can assure you that 99% of them prefer and love being circumcised. In fact, I have never met a man who was no proud of it. Also, it is mainly a religious issue. And we all know how much power women have with regards to religion, don't we?
You're an asshole. Circumcision makes rape look cute. You have and never will experience that kind of violence and have the nerve to perpetuate these lies. You have done absolutely no research. You are literally a rape apologist. Babies die from it every year, and you may as well have raped them to death yourself. Women like you are disgusting pigs. Most FGM is less severe than MGM, but you don't even know that because the dirka mouth-breathing Islamic savages you call family are too monstrous to have any empathy for boys at all. You are a rape apologist and a vile woman who should really go think about how sick your comment is with the genders reversed. Reversing the genders is clearly the only way you would ever see men and boys are humans. If religion is an excuse to cut up a baby, why shouldn't religion be an excuse to cut you? In fact, what better excuse could there be than that you're literally in favor of raping babies? On what grounds would you even complain? OMG, you can't do this to me, a woman. Sexual mutilation is for the subhumans known as boys. You would be less despicable as a straight-up slave owner, seriously.
Laws do not protect women more than men. For God's sake, an 11-year-old was just forced to marry her rapist, in my county in Florida, in the United States. Child marriage is rampant. Kevin, you're a man, so perhaps you don't know, but as a woman you are faced with sexism every day. The R word happened to me, and most of the girls I know. Screw you. We need feminism. Feminism equals equality. And contrary to popular belief, feminists fight for men's rights too, you dummy.
The women's movement has never fought for an issue that wasn't to women's perceived benefit. Men are more likely to be raped than women, and the sexual violence endured by men is far more severe and legal. Women objectively do enjoy more legal protections. Are you sure the rape you suffered wasn't actually a lobotomy? Because that's what it would have to be to justify your position. Also, if you were familiar with the dictionary definition of feminism or any feminist activities from any of its waves, you would not maintain that it is about equality. Did anyone else notice she expresses more sympathy for abusive mothers than their victims and actually puts more emphasis on "hey ladies, you don't wanna fucking emasculated man, oops, now that this negatively impacts women it matters. Oh, you prefer a bete kook. K, go ahead and abuse and fuck your son or whatever. It's okay, you're oppressed as long as you think you are. 50 years ago fallacy right out the gate. You're completely wrong about the history of men and women. Women's feelings are not justified, they are simple, petty bigot tries. Men and women were oppressed throughout human history, and you are giving women a pass for their evil while erasing men's good. You literally lined up the abuse endured by a male child to compare to grown women's oppression? Oppressed relative to who? I dare you to say men, but, more importantly, I challenge you to sit down and compare men's issues to women's. So an abusive mother who believes the same lies you believe is somehow as justified as their sons who were legitimately innocent victims? So which is it? Are women adults or are they children? Stop trying to have it both ways. Do we hold women to standards or just assume they're moral cripples and adjust our expectations accordingly?
People are different, they can be oppressed in different ways. In history men had most of the power. Period. They still have most of the power today. Period. She not giving women pass. She just telling in what ways women have been oppressed in a way they choose to get back at men. Why are you triggered? I don't get why people get triggered so much. It's like you can't focus on any one issue without feeling left out, or people you can't acknowledge that they feel that way. Like no one is blaming all men for everything. It's just that in many societies it was structured for them to benefit in certain ways. Like you people search these videos only to invalidate everything what people feel. I think in a way that shows your own pain.
You're completely wrong. The only way you can maintain that perspective is by erasing male sacrifice throughout all of history. Patriarchy theory is the most widespread campaign of dehumanization on the planet. When you hear "let's kill all the men and rape their women," you and Teal respond with "OMG. I can't believe they said they'd rape the women." Now copy and paste this psychotic indifference to male suffering trillions of times across history, and that is how you end up with such a twisted perspective.
Let's not forget about Teal's background. And taking that in consideration, I think she has expressed her opinion quite softly.
What are you implying? That if she has a good enough Me Too she gets to be a bigot?
Teal Swan always says we are all victims of victims. I hope this helps you see why she can't say some people are bad and others aren't.
As a woman, your issues are taken seriously even when they're fake. Check your privilege. Oh wait, I guess we'll abandon that approach the moment men get too uppity with their facts. So women get a pass, procuring special rights and privileges no other human has ever had on the grounds of equality, yet these same women find no motivation to stand up for their fathers, brothers, husbands, or sons. You can be okay with that, but I believe this moral cowardice characterized by your lazy acceptance of a wretchedly bigoted narrative is not essential for women. Though it seems the vast majority of men and women are desperate to make me regret my optimism.
She doesn't act like a bigot to me. LOL. Take gender out of equation and it becomes more about the level of compassion and understanding of another.
I'm responding to gendered claims. Why is Teal allowed to engage in blanket slander of all men in the past as tyrannical oppressors? Why aren't you saying OMG? Why are you gendering it? It's because you're on board with the approach as long as it's to women's perceived benefit. You abandon the standard the moment someone applies it consistently.
I don't understand. What are you trying to say, spacepan? If you are so passionate about the history and its details, then please provide at least a link where Teal has said or wrote this about men that made you think this way. I ain't got time for that.
Literally the first minute of the video. I am referring to patriarchy theory and the myth of female oppression relative to men. These are lies, and it is very easy to prove. I have videos on my channel addressing these topics, but I would recommend you look into the work of Alison Tiemann, Karen Strahan, Cassie J, Hannah Wallen, Diana Davison, Janice Fiamenko, and BANE666AU. There are countless others. If there is a particular topic in men's issues you are scratching your head over, I am happy to fetch a specific link if one comes to mind. Alternatively, the entire speeches from A Voice for Men's international conferences on men's issues are all available on YouTube. Warren Farrell is a great starting point too. Or watch the Red Pill documentary, that'll get you caught up in no time.
selectively cutting out the parts of the video and pasting them together to form an opinion while completely dismissing the rest of the video along with everything else Teal has said and done, is AF castration of another human being.
This is the third time you have shifted the goalposts. The only thing you seem to be sure of is that you don't want me to be right. Every demand to justify my position that you have asked of me I have provided, yet here you are with brand new grounds for rejecting my position. So if me pointing you to the exact claims I am criticizing was insufficient, what the actual fuck do you think you're asking of me? Do not ask for clarification if you're going to switch the deal whenever it doesn't suit your bias.
You know, you have all the funding. You have, you know, God's fucking blessing to be the ambassador to all gender issues. You have the fucking power. Why don't you fucking do it? If you lifted a single fucking finger to help men for once in your goddamn life, these issues would have been solved by now. And that's why I fucking hate feminism. That's why I'm an anti-feminist, because the way I see it, the women's movement was evil. It was evil from start to finish, and the greatest tragedy of the fucking first wave feminists and those goddamn suffragettes is the fact that only one of those bitches got trampled to death. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.